welcome to Smart Men's Business. I'm Andrew Barija. It's exactly 5 minutes past the hour of 7 a.m. and today is the 17th of October. I hope you had a great weekend. New prospects and new everything. Personally, I quite had a great one. And of course, I also officially welcome you to this segment of the SMB News Wake Up as we go through the days previous, not the days previous, but the weeks. Our previous news story starts now. We're talking about Friday, the stories that are making headlines in the world of business. And of course, don't forget to check us out on GoTV. That's channel 394 on DSTV. It's channel 372. And to kickstart off this hour, we start with the BLQ scam as Ugandans lose more than 1.5 billion Ugandan shillings due to the football. That's the gaming football scam that actually disappeared with quite so many large amounts of Ugandans' money where they could bet and of course earning an interest. Let's have the details of this report. I'll be returning with more highlights.
There are a lot of scams out there when it comes to earning money, making investments, saving money, and everything else linked to money. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have to worry about con artists attempting to take our money. But in the actual world, scams are still very much in existence. Sadly, they continue to swindle victims every year. Another Ponzi scheme, BLQ Football, shut down and fled with almost 1.5 billion Uganda shillings in stolen funds from the would-be investors. The state's finance minister, Honorable Henry Musasizi, made this official announcement to the media.
Attention has been brought to the National Lotteries and Gaming Regulatory Board on a company trading as BLQ Football Uganda on social media platforms such as the Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, WhatsApp, and its website called blq66.cc. BLQ company has been conducting betting activities illegally without a license.
BLQ has been illegally operating betting activities without a license from the National Lotteries and Gaming Regulatory Board. Speaking to Dennis Mudeni Ngabirano, CEO of the National Lotteries and Gaming Regulatory Board, he described the requirements under which a business can obtain a license to operate in such a sector in order to prevent further losses.
Just to apply for a license of the categories I've mentioned, one, you must be a registered company in Uganda, formally registered and registered with other government agencies like URA and the likes. There are different categories of fees that you pay to get a license. We have categorized it in nationals and foreign companies. So for foreign companies, for an application for a license is about 20 million shillings. For nationals is 10 million shillings. So upon submission of all your legal documents of the company, we do an evaluation, and once we confirm that the documentation you've submitted meets our criteria, before we issue a license, we ask you to take out a bank guarantee of 500 million Ugandan shillings. It's upon receipt of that confirmation and after us verifying with the bank that has issued this bank guarantee that then we issue a license.
However, law enforcement agencies are coordinating their efforts to completely shut down the operations of BLQ Football and other con sites.
The government has effectively closed the operations of this Ponzi scheme, and the process of investigating similar companies are underway. How have we managed this process of closure? On 22nd of July 2022, the board wrote to Uganda Communications UCC notifying them of the illegal online gaming operations of BLCU Football Uganda. UCC issued a directive to internet service providers to block access of the fraudulent websites.
Ugandans have lost a lot of money through pawn schemes, and BLQ alone, it has calmed more than 1.5 billion from Ugandans. But the government and authorities have come up with tough measures to save Ugandans.
Authorities shut down the world-known scam website BLQ Football Uganda. Of course, Ugandans lost more than 1.5 billion shillings, and in order to sell its membership, BLQ was utilizing the gaming sector and the company positioning itself as an investment firm where members may earn money by enticing others to join the platform. And of course, this falls under the famous schemes known as the Ponzi schemes, or what we can call the pyramid schemes, as whereby you get paid according to the new investor that joins that particular investment. That's quite so unrealistic, and we've had such schemes in Uganda, not only actually Uganda, but the world at large, and majority of the people have lost money. That was quite sad for the Ugandans that lost that money. 1.5 billion is quite a lot of money regarding majority of the people. Actually, some sold land titles, gave out the land titles. They sold so many things to invest money into this particular business. All right, away from that, let's get straight to the East African Court of Justice cases, as the East African Court of Justice will refer cases to the Ugandan court for hearing. Let's have the details of this report.
That the East African Court of Justice will be convening in Uganda from the 1st of November to the 30th to hear new cases, but also to hear appeals and to deliver rulings in some matters. As you are aware, the East African Court of Justice is one of the organs of the East African Community. It is based in Arusha. Under the treaty, they are supposed to be temporarily in Arusha, although they have been there for 20 years. But last year, they agreed that they should begin convening at least once a year outside Arusha. So last year, in 2021, they convened in Bujumbura for the 1 month. They have now come to Uganda to hold those hearings here in Uganda.
Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga explains how arbitration of problems involving international commerce will be handled. The East African Court of Justice recently amended the treaty to interpret it to deal with disputes under the Customs Union and Common Market Protocol.
The jurisdiction of the East African Court of Justice was amended. Originally, it was only to deal with the interpretation of the treaty, the rights of the workers of the community, and so on. But recently, it was amended to include now disputes under the Customs Union and also under the Common Market Protocol. So now the court will be able to consider those disputes about borders, about non-tariff barriers, and so on.
The concern is whether registries which enabled petitioners to submit their petitions online without traveling from one country to another will be in existence indefinitely to prevent incurring excessive costs.
The treaty is very clear. It says temporarily, in bold, temporarily in Arusha, but not temporarily, 20 years. So I told my colleagues at the last council meeting in July that I think it is time we took a decision on this matter. Let us advise the heads of state to take a decision once and for all. Does it stay in Tanzania? Does it move to Nairobi? Does it move to Kampala? So that we know where it's going.
The court conference, scheduled to take place at the Mestil Hotel from October 24th through 28th, will take place prior to the beginning of case hearings and verdicts. The court will then proceed with them in 2 quarter sets. For example, 5 cases will be to deliver judgments and 11 cases for hearing and 5 scheduled for future hearing. Appeals will also be heard at a communicated timetable.
The first Deputy Prime Minister of Uganda and Minister of East Africa Affairs, that's Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga, provided an update on the entire East African community on the decision made by the East African Court, that's of Justice, to refer cases to Uganda Court for hearing and decision at the Commercial, of course, Division High Court in Kampala, which will be scheduled to take place from November 1st. That's till November 30th with the different judges right there. All right, and now let's get straight to the private sector growth. And of course, this time around, we are looking at the state of the growth of the private sector in Uganda. First of all, let's have the details of this report. I'll be returning to throw highlight.
In the Purchasing Managers Report compiled by America's financial and analytics company S&P Global and Stanbic Bank Uganda, amid economic difficulties, a rise ahead to 51.6% in growth of the private sector was reported. The headline PMI increased to 51.6% last month from 50.5%, indicating business expansion in 2 consecutive months as services, industry and agriculture thrived, but employment and wholesale plus retail declined.
We import like 5, maximum 10. Yeah, because when you import so many cars, we're going to buy it. Yeah, the prices are expensive. People don't have money. The economy is tough. But you know what? Here, where I am, here the market is good. So the interesting part is that this kind of challenge has boosted the local sales. There is a lot of selling every day here.
The business model, reflective of many other businesses, has perhaps set pace for a different money supply situation in the country.
The vast majority of your economy is not plugged into the mainstream financial sector. So it is possible that the formal sector players, the people in formal employment and the banks and the companies, they could be seeing some liquidity because of an increase in money supply. But because the people are unbanked, people downtown doing simple businesses, the unbanked population, because they're not plugged into the mainstream financial system, and because the money in the broad money supply is not moving as fast as it should. You know, money has a velocity, the rate at which 1 shilling circulates from one person to another. So if that velocity, if you increase broad money supply and the velocity of that money is 0, it doesn't change, it doesn't even contribute to the inflation.
With the supply of money having increased since May to 25,688 billion Uganda shillings, the Bank of Uganda raised the key lending rate to 10% at the beginning of this month in an effort to combat inflation.
Inflation pressures remain elevated. In light of the outlook of higher inflation, the MPC has increased the CBR by 1 percentage point to 10%. The ban on the CBR remains at +/- 2 percentage points. The margins on the CPR for the rediscount and the bank rates will remain at 3 and 4 percentage points.
As the current approach to address the relentless cost-push inflation still stands, it's contagious how far the crisis could get.
Increasing interest rates, you risk plunging, like the UN has been saying, you risk plunging the economy into a recession. And the IMF, by the way, is predicting that there's going to be a global contraction from their projected economic growth of 3.2 to something less than that. So the broad money supply by itself, I don't think the inflation we have right now is because of demand issues or demand pull. It could be more of cost push, breakdown of supply chains, So I think government should deal more with supply issues, should deal more with insulating the people against the strengthening dollar, because I don't think even the broad money supply alone.
Earlier last month, some legislators expressed distress over the economic stance as businesses failed to stay afloat amid inflation and a restrictive monetary policy, even though progress reports suggested otherwise.
What we know from the economist is that government is trying to suppress availability of liquidity in the market to control inflation. We urge government to use other monetary policy for controlling inflation. For example, they can suppress some component of classified expenditure. They can suppress some components of non-strategic sector of the economy.
The outcry is, however, far-reaching, as Uganda's central bank is determined to address inflationary pressures in light of economic uncertainty.
The recent increases in the CBR, coupled with fiscal tightening, have had somewhat an indirect effect in stabilizing the shilling exchange rate, which is expected to cushion the inflationary pressures.
There is still a thin line between how high prices affect various investments, even as money supply rises and signs of private sector involvement and growth emerge.
According to a report, Progress reports deficit reality that's extremely different from economic and financial precedents that have seen many enterprises and consumers suffer expenses that's differently, and of course leading that's to a fiercely debated trajectory for the private sector growth in the post-pandemic and inflationary period. All right, and now we wind this up with the capitalization of the small and intermediary enterprises. But this time around, we are looking at the obstacles that limit their operations. Let's have the details of this report.
The study conducted by Abinis and Arthur in 2013 establishes that SMEs are largely constrained by inadequate funding. Uganda in particular has a constrained access because these large foreign banks usually target corporate and high net worth individuals. Financial institutions usually give out short loans with rollover and high interest rate risks that affect or discourage SMEs from borrowing or making long-term investment decisions. We have more. The level of banking penetration in the nation is among the lowest in the sub-Saharan Africa. A few companies in Uganda, per the World Bank's Group's enterprise surveys, have access to a bank loan or line of credit. These announced funds, according to the Federation of Small and Medium Enterprises, are empty promises, saying that formalizing a tiny business would be pointless because taxes would wipe it out.
People trying to excite SMEs. But if you investigated and found out where is the money, where is it seated, how are people to access and so on, you'd find that there are a lot of missing details. So I don't take these announcements seriously anymore until we start seeing concrete opportunities for SMEs. Should say the money is here, this is the assessment criteria, and so on. And the assessment criteria should be fair to most SMEs. It shouldn't be so difficult that it is as good as SMEs not accessing. You see? Because if I say, oh, I have a fund for SMEs, but for you to access it, you must come and you must bring me a land title of 20 billion and you should ask for a minimum of 10 billion. How many SMEs will access? None. Asking them, why should we formalize? Explain. Tell us the value proposition. Don't just say you'll be a good citizen, you see people need hospitals. Well, even those that don't pay tax access hospital services. So why should the business formalize? So I think that value proposition, in my opinion, is still lacking.
With the aid of circles and investment partners, some enterprises are able to survive.
Yes, in a way. I think it has been very helpful for us to be part of these associations like USIA, the Small Scale Industries Association, women entrepreneurship groups. It's only, of course, me as the business owner, I cannot approach government directly, but these funds are being channeled through SME development projects that eventually come down to associations like the ones I've mentioned. So currently, this business has always been funded initially by my personal savings. I also received funding through equity partners.
The United Nations Capital Development Fund, in partnership with the Private Sector Foundation Uganda and the Uganda Development Bank, established the Support to Agriculture Revitalization and Transformation of Program in an effort to provide access to finance for SMEs engaged in agro-processing and value addition.
Funded various SMEs to the tune of 43 billion Ugandan shillings. We have also provided liquidity support and working capital to over 20 different SMEs who have been hit particularly hard by COVID-19. No, enterprises. We're talking about registered enterprises.
90% of the production that's in the country's private sector is produced by the small and intermediary enterprises, which are crucial to Uganda's growth strategy. They generate 70% of the new jobs created at more than 60% of the continent's gross domestic product. However, the SMEs still face obstacles when running their operations. All right, that's it for the news recap this morning. And if you just joined us, just to give you a highlight of where we started from, of course, we reviewed the BLQ scam, and as the company closed due to lack of a license, and Ugandans lost more than 1.5 billion shillings. And we came way down to the East African Court of Justice as the first Deputy Prime Minister, that's of Uganda, and Minister for East African Affairs, that's right, Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga, provided, and of course an update on the entire East African community on the decision that's made by the East African Court of Justice to refer cases that's to the Uganda for court, of course, for hearing to make decisions. And then we came down to the private sector growth, examining the state of growth of the private sector in Uganda, and we winded up the entire session looking at the small and intermediate enterprises, but this time around assessing the obstacles of their operations. Let's get into a short commercial break for now. More business returns. Good morning.